The Blacksmiths Forge, it's at the Black Country Museum. It's a living museum which is in, well, just outside Birmingham here in the UK. I took the picture purely from my own point of view that the last time I was there, which is many years ago, there was a blacksmith stood in front of the forge. Took it from head on. Some of you might even remember that picture because yes, I did use it in a few tutorials. Anyway, took the picture of the forge. I sort of set the camera so it was handheld shot. It was in quite very dark conditions, to be quite honest with you. Surprised the way it came out. And when I looked at it, I thought that looks pretty good. It's a very high ISO. I don't like using a flash. A flash would tend to sort of kill off a picture like this. Yes, we've got some noise going on, but not really worried. It was about 1600 ISO, I think, or may even been higher than that. But when I looked at it, I thought, wow. Just love the colours that we got here. Yeah, it's the rust colours, but you've got the yellows, you've got sort of the colour, the sort of the creams, the greens, there's a fair bit of green and yeah, it's all about the colours. There's purples, magentas, there's reds, there's everything going on in the floor. So, let's see what we can do with this picture. First thing, Command J, Control J is going to duplicate the background layer. We're then going to go to filter, we're then going to go to blur, we're going to go to Gaussian blur, and we're going to blur it, no, not by that much, but because, well, we're going to bring it to something like that. There, looks pretty good. Yep, if I click in, you can see there's a part, I think that's from that area there, and you can see there's a little bit of noise going on as well, but clicking OK to that, job done. Right, dropping down, we're going to go to an adjustment layer. We're going to go to hue saturation. With hue saturation, we're going to take the saturation right up to this sort of area here. What we got? We got plus 60. Now the important thing with this is we also drop down and we click on this little icon here. This is going to clip it to the layer immediately underneath. I've clicked on that. You'll notice the way it's dropped down. If we come to the layers panel, you can see there's our adjustment layer, and you can see the way it's now clipped it down, so it's now working purely on this layer underneath. If I just switch this off, you will see the way that it's not working, it's just coming through purely on this layer, it's not working on the background layer. Another way that you can sort of clip or unclip is if you bring your cursor between the two layers. If you press Alt or Option, you can see the way it now changes to that paperclip. So if I unclip it, there it is there. Now it is working on the background layer. If I click it again, it's now clipped it. It's working purely on this layer here. Clever or what? Right, working on layer 1. We're going to change the blend mode. Multiply. Looks pretty good. Overlay. Looks pretty good too. Soft lights, yes, okay there. And it's really up to you. Hard lights, yeah, that looks pretty good. Some nice bits and pieces going on with that. Quite like that. I think hard lights is the one we're going to go for. You can see the way the colours are all coming through with this now. That looks brilliant like that. I want to bring out a little bit more detail perhaps in some parts of it. So we're going to drop down. We're going to put in a layer mask. That's this one here, this little icon here. Clicking on that, in goes the layer mask. Making sure we've got black as the foreground colour because black is going to remove that white mask. We're going to pick up the gradient tool. We're going to make sure we got the radial gradient, that's this one here, the second one in, and just come across to the gradient here, click inside, make sure that you have not got foreground to background, you want foreground to transparent, so let's click on that second little button in. This gives you the foreground through to transparent, that checkerboard background. Click OK to that. The opacity I've dropped right the way down from 100% to 20%. You can either use the slider like this or try just pressing 2 on the keyboard. That takes you straight to 20%. A low opacity, rather than sort of blitzing it away at 100%, it's going to allow you to be able to come in. You can click down, you can draw it out to that sort of area there for our gradient tool. Release it, that's going to sweep around to that sort of radius, and if I release it, through it goes. Perhaps just a little bit on this part here, through that goes. A little bit here, and you can just sort of paint in little bits and pieces wherever you want. That looks pretty good like that, so I think we'll leave it and Command 0, Control 0 to go back to fit on screen. And you can see it is a it's just a tiny little sort of grey points. That's all we brought back. Right, for the next stage, let's click on the top layer again. We're going to come across, we're going to pick up the Elliptical Marquee tool, We're going to drag this over the picture like this. The reason for doing this, yes, it's going to be a vignette with a difference, because this area here, the area where we got the chain coming through, it's not particularly sharp. That doesn't worry me. The colour there, yeah, it's okay. It doesn't, yeah, nice to have it. It's nice to have this part in as well. The front of the forge is open. There's no doors, there's nothing on it. The front of the forge is open, so the daylight is streaming in from this area here, as we can see with the shadows. And we're just going to play along with that a little bit. We're going to give more emphasis to the center part of the picture. By dropping down, we're going to go to Hue Saturation. You'll notice the selection has disappeared, but if we come to the lightness slider, if we move this down, you can see the way we can darken down. We're darkening down the center, and you're thinking, that's wrong. Yeah, it may be wrong, but it can also be right. If we come back to the layers panel, you can see there it is there. There's our adjustment layer that we've darkened down. It is wrong, it's the wrong way around. We need to invert this mask, so make sure we've got that framework coming around the outside. Now use Command I or Control I, and we have now inverted the mask. The next thing we're going to do is use a shortcut, which is Command T or Control T. That's Command T or Control T. That has put the transform tool around the actual oval itself. Fantastic, or what? You will notice the way the cursor changes. If you bring it inside the transform tool, it goes from that bent arrow to an arrowhead. If you right click, there's the menu from the transform tool, and it is Distort, the one we're after. We're going to come to the top corner here. We're going to lift this out. We're going to take it out over the picture like that. We're going to drag this out over that area like this. That's how we got the daylight coming in. We're going to drag this down into that sort of area like this, and again with this one here we can choose to sort of pull it up a little bit like that. Doesn't matter if you come over the edge like this, doesn't matter at all. I'm going to try and get to that without clicking on the green tick and applying it, or pulling that in like this and just dropping that down a touch or two, and double click in to apply inside, or press enter or return, or click on that little green tick. The choice is up to you. Right, there we've got quite a hard edge. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we're going to blur it. You can see the way we're blurring it there. That's at the radius we used before. This one though we're going to take right the way up. This will depend on the file size you're working with. I've got quite a large file size here. It's 173 megabytes at the moment, so it's quite a large file size. I'm going to click OK to that. The other thing you can do is just reduce the opacity of this down a touch or two, and that's the sort of area I'm after there. It just gives it that sort of, just takes the edge off that bright sort of part in the bottom there, and it gives a sense that the lighting is coming in through this area. Right, to finish off, we're simply going to come back to an adjustment layer. We're going to go to brightness and contrast. We're going to take the brightness up a touch or two like this, and you can see the way that's working there. Just going to take it up to that sort of point. Contrast, we're going to take the contrast up a little bit into that area there, and there it is. There's the finished image, and with this it is completely adjustable still. Save it in layers, and if you decide, yeah, I prefer to do that in multiply blend mode, you can still do it in the multiply blend mode. There it is there. You can change it, you can do whichever one you want. You could go to overlay, you can come down to hard lights. I think works, yeah, hard lights looks pretty good with that. No, actually I'm now, and this is the fantastic part about it, you can sort of try the various different ones, and you can think it depends on the look you're after. Alright, I'm going to go for overlay. There it is. Even the sort of the hue saturation here, if you think that's just a little bit too much, you can come in, drop the opacity down, or drop the hue saturation down itself. I'm just dropping that down to 89% there. There's our finished image. Go on, give it a try. It's just a great way of taking a picture that it was a snapshot. It's one that I took purely from my own personal sentimental point of view, but you know, you can transform it into something a little bit different. Go on, give it a go. Until the next time, it's happy imaging, and take care.